Eduardo Perez, no introduction needed. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Look, there are athletes, right? NBC Sports and ESPN just can't wait to sign them after they retire. They tell me, I don't really see myself going into the commentary booth and watching other players younger than me doing what I can't do anymore. And that's going to drive me insane. And then there are players like yourself. You have a great time on ESPN analyzing the games for us. What would you say is the difference between you and the other players who are a little bit camera shy here?
I grew up around this sport, and because I grew up around baseball and I felt comfortable my entire life being, if it's the son of a major leaguer, then being a player trying to going through the college ranks, and then after that signing professionally and trying to get to the major leagues, and then becoming the major leaguer. I have a lot of respect for the game. I know how difficult it is to play. I've seen it in so many different angles that I feel that I owe a lot to the game. The game will continue with or without me, and I want to be a part of it. I want to be along. I want to be a part of it for the ride because it's been so good to our family, and to be able to talk about other players and knowing how difficult it is to be able to play the sport on a daily basis. To me, it's an honor to be doing what I'm doing.
You're telling me essentially the most important thing is to be in the game, whether it's as a player or as a commentator or just as somebody who's going to the game and having fun.
Absolutely. And to the point where I don't like feeling comfortable. I like feeling sometimes on edge when it comes to the game. I like getting educated about it. And this game has changed in so many ways analytically, with the way it's been able to develop people outside of the game, putting their input, putting their fingerprint on it and making it better. So I actually left my comfort zone once I got on TV, and I went to coach. And I coached for 2.5 years with the Marlins and with the Astros. And it actually taught me a lot about the game in a different light that I had never seen. So then I went back to television, and I fell in love with it even more because now I see the game in a different light than I did after I played it. So the game continues to teach you not only about what happens within the lines, but also outside the lines.
And Eduardo, look, I've been very upfront with you. I've had a lot of elite athletes on my show, but myself, I'm not a baseball person. I am, however, a numbers person. And nowadays, when you go on TV, you talk a lot about numbers, data analytics. Can you talk about how data analytics and the quantitative measurements have impacted the sport? And because they have really become the litmus test of signing contracts in baseball.
They really have. And again, I think baseball has always had numbers, and that's the beauty of it. Historically, we always look at the numbers. Before, it was the focus more on the batting average, the home runs, the runs batted in. Now we're looking at in-depth analyzation, taking the luck factor out of it, where batting average can't take that out of it. We try to look at exit velocity. We look at the OPS, which is a combination of the slugging and the batting average. We look at the overall player when it comes to being able to elevate the ball. If you look at the offensive side of it. And then on the defensive side of it, we have so many defensive metrics to go along with first step, how good your jump is after the ball has made contact. We look also at the pitchers, where the release point is, what their spin rate is. There's so much formulas out there, and so many companies have their weighted differences. But what we try to do, because every field is different. If you're playing in Colorado, it's going to be a lot different than playing if it's in Miami or playing in New York. So we try to even out the playing field with the data. And I think that's made us more educated as far as evaluators, as far as broadcasters also, to understand where the value is in the players. And now it's the players' turn with their agents to also look at all that data, get more educated with that data, and try to get the best out of that player. And also at the same time, try to get the best economically out of that player, even if the numbers show the RBIs, the batting average show that it's not great, yet the data might show otherwise and say, you know what, he just probably wasn't lucky enough this year, but he'll be back and he'll be consistent in the next upcoming year. So it forecasts a lot of good things as far as where the game is going. And quantitatively, I think eventually what we're seeing now is just the beginning of where we can really take this in the near future.
See, I'm not an athlete myself, but I completely get how difficult it is to compete. And if I were an athlete, I would be saying to myself, I have to go training, I have to do this, I have to do that, and now I have to pay attention to all these numbers. How can I make data my friend?
You know what? It's very intimidating to a lot of people, but I think at the end of the day, you pick one number and you stick with it, and then you just progress to the next one. I grew up in an era where a lot of people would think, well, he's old school because he grew up in the era of just batting average, home runs, runs scored, and RBIs, and the word clutch doesn't really mean a thing anymore. The player is just a number and what those numbers come about. But at the same time, baseball, just like in basketball and football and all these sports, we are learning that there's an appreciation to it, and there's a way of doing it. I have two girls, and both of them, one's in the high school, one's a junior, and the other one is an 8th grader. And they're already looking at the data because I've been looking at the data and understanding how it works. And little by little, they have also been able to grasp it. And now we talk in numbers terms. And I think it's a good foundation for every young, if it's not even athlete, but every young fan to be able to be involved in the sport, especially in baseball, where everything has always been able to be about numbers. It looks complicated, but it really isn't at the end of the day once you understand how to be able to utilize it and see it firsthand.
Then as a fan, if I just want to focus on one number, as you said, what should I look at?
Wow, that's a great question. And that's a great question because it's hard to just focus on one. I would probably say OPS. And because it's the slugging and the average, you combine those two together and you look at, and that can pretty much tell you a little bit of the story of if the player is a power hitter or not. Another number that I would look at if I was a pitching fan, if I was a pitcher's fan, we always used to look at the ERA, which is earned run average. I actually would not look at that number anymore as much as I would with the WHIP, WHIP. So that wins and innings with innings pitched. I think that one is one that one would really enjoy looking at also and try to educate themselves on it. Another one is the strikeouts. Strikeout pitcher is always a good quality pitcher to have in your staff.
Okay, a few things to think about.